chosen one. Yes, you. The one who has been quietly counted out by people so certain they had already measured the whole of you, so sure they knew exactly where your ceiling was, that they stopped watching you closely a long time ago. Before we begin, do something for me. Sit down. Wherever you are, find a place where your back has something to rest against. Put your phone face down, not away, not off, just face down, so nothing can flicker at you while we talk. Unclench your jaw. You didn't notice you were holding it. Most chosen ones don't. Now breathe all the way out. Not halfway, all the way, until there's nothing left, and let the next breath come on its own. And let your shoulders come down from where they've been living, up around your ears, for longer than you would ever admit out loud. Good. That's the chosen one I'm speaking to. Now listen, because this message found you for a reason. Something has already happened that you have not been told about yet. Not in the future, already. A season turned somewhere behind the visible world, quietly, without an announcement. And you have been walking around inside the results of it for weeks without knowing the cause is already finished, already decided, already sealed. The people who underestimated you are going to be proven wrong in the open, in front of others, in a way none of them can spin. And the strangest part is that the decision was made before any of them will find out about it. Your season already turned. The world is just catching up to a verdict already entered. Here is what you need to understand first, before anything else. Being underestimated is not a description of you. It never was. It is a description of the people doing the estimating. When someone measures you and comes up short, they have not discovered a fact about your size. They have revealed the limit of their own instrument. And an instrument that reads low does not make the thing it measures smaller. It only means the wrong tool was held up to something it was never built to weigh. You have spent a long time confusing those two things. You took their low reading and carried it as if it were the truth about your weight. And for years, you moved through your life slightly stooped, careful not to bump your head on a ceiling that was never real. A ceiling they installed in a room you did not have to live in, out of materials that had nothing to do with what you actually are. Imagine this. A sealed envelope held up to a lamp. You can see there is a letter inside, the dark shape of writing pressed against the paper, a signature at the bottom, a verdict written out in full. But you cannot read a single word because the envelope is still closed and has not yet been handed to the people it was written to. Something has already been decided about how this turns out. It is sitting there, finished, held up against the light, and you have spent this whole season feeling the shape of it through the paper without being able to read the words. That low hum you cannot locate, that sense that something has shifted and you cannot say what, that is not your imagination. That is a verdict already written, waiting to be delivered. Tonight we hold it up to the lamp together. Because here is what happened while you were busy surviving. The season of being small was a season, not a sentence. It had edges. It had a beginning you remember too well and an ending you walked straight past without noticing. Because endings in real life rarely come with a sound. There was no bell, no announcement. Just an ordinary week somewhere in the recent past, with the ground quietly finished turning underneath you, and you didn't feel the exact moment it happened, because you were still braced for a fight you had, in fact, already won. That is why we are here, because you deserve to know that it happened, even though nobody sent you the memo. Even though the people who underestimated you are still walking around inside the old story as if it were still true. The old story is running on momentum now. It is a wheel still spinning after the hand has left it. And you have been mistaking that leftover spin for the machine still running. If this is already landing somewhere real in you, do me one small thing before we go deeper. Tap the like and subscribe. Not for me. There is someone tonight sitting in a quiet room, absolutely convinced that the people who wrote them off were right to do it, that the low reading was the true one. The like is the only road that reaches them. You would just be holding the door open for the next chosen one behind you. Now, back to it. Here is the part you keep circling without letting yourself land on it. You have felt the change already, a door you had knocked on for years and stopped expecting to open has begun to give at the hinge. Someone's tone toward you, someone who used to talk over you, softened this month in a way you noticed and then talked yourself out of noticing. You told yourself you were imagining it, because the last thing you want to be is the fool who mistakes a warm afternoon for the change of a season. But you were not imagining it. The season changed underneath the visible world, in a place you could not watch, and now the weather is only catching up to a decision made a while ago. And I know why you resist believing it. Because believing it means admitting the low reading was wrong, and if the low reading was wrong, then the years you spent living beneath it were years spent smaller than you had to be. That is a hard thing to face. It is almost easier to keep believing you were correctly measured than to accept you were undersold. We are going to face it anyway, gently, tonight. Not to make you bitter about the years, to make you free of the ceiling for every year that is left. So let us slow all the way down and walk through exactly how a season turns before anyone sees it, how a verdict gets entered before it gets read aloud, and what it quietly does to the people who were so certain they had you figured out. 12 parts, precise in order. What the underestimation actually was, why it was always going to break, and what happens in the open now that the ground has already moved. But first, this is where the room thins out. You can feel it, chosen one. The ones who clicked because the words looked interesting are already drifting off towards something louder and faster. That is fine. That was always going to happen. This was never built for the curious. It was built for the one who has spent years being quietly counted out by people who were sure they had the measure of you, and who is only now beginning to suspect that they measured wrong. So if you are still here, if something in your chest went tight a minute ago when I said your season already turned, drop 777 in the comments. Not for luck, not because a number is trending somewhere. Do it as a quiet mark that says you intend to hear this all the way through, that you are the one this was written for, and not just someone passing by. I read them, and when I see that number stacking up in there, I know the message reached the person it was addressed to. Settle in. Stay with me. Here is the first one. Number 1. The math they never checked. When someone underestimates you, they are not describing your size. They are confessing the day they stopped looking. Start here, because everything else rests on it. The people who counted you out did not arrive at their number through some careful, ongoing study of who you are. They took a reading once, usually a long time ago, usually on one of your worst days, or in one of your smallest seasons, and then they filed it and never checked it again. That is the thing you have to understand about being underestimated. It is almost never based on current information. It is an old photograph they keep mistaking for a live feed. Imagine this. A merchant weighs a stone once, early, when it is still half buried in the dirt, writes a small number on a tag, and moves on. He never picks it up again. Underneath the dirt, the stone is not a stone at all. It is the exposed tip of something enormous, with roots running deep, that would take 10 men to move. But the tag still says the small number, and everyone who walks past reads it and steps over the thing as if it were nothing. And the whole time, the real weight of it sits there, unmeasured, waiting for the day someone tries to lift it and discovers the tag was a lie the merchant told himself years ago and never corrected. You might wonder why they never updated the number as you grew, because updating it would have cost them something, an admission that they might have been wrong the first time, and most people would rather carry an outdated map than admit the territory changed. So they held the old number long past the point where it described anything real, and now they walk face first into the actual weight of you, still holding a tag that says you are light. Here is the line they can't say out loud, chosen one. They did not measure you and find you small. They measured you once, filed the number, and stopped looking. And everything you became since then, you became in the blind spot they created by being so sure. No, you were not correctly weighed. You were weighed early, weighed once, and never weighed again. The estimate they carry is not a verdict on your size. It is a receipt from a day that is long gone. And the reckoning that is coming is simply the moment the tag finally has to meet the stone. Number 2, why they needed you small. Their comfort was built on your ceiling being low, and a person will defend their comfort long after they've stopped believing the story that props it up. Now, go one layer deeper, because the underestimation was not only lazy. For some of them, it was necessary. There were people in your life who needed you smaller than you are, not because they hated you, sometimes because they loved a version of you that fit neatly beside them, and your growth threatened the arrangement. Your smallness was doing a job for them. It kept the ranking clear. And a person who is comfortable will resist your rising not out of cruelty, but out of a quiet, unspoken preference for things to stay exactly as they were. Imagine this, a locked room, and you have lived in it so long you have stopped testing the door. The people outside have all agreed on the size of this room. It is convenient for everyone that you stay, because your being contained tells them where they are. You are the low mark they measure their own height against. And here's what none of them noticed. The lock was never fastened from the outside. It was a habit, not a bolt, held shut only by everyone's shared agreement that it was locked, including yours. And this season, quietly, you leaned on it, and it gave, and you have already stepped 1 foot out, and the people who built their bearings on you being inside have not yet turned around to see the door standing open. You might wonder why, if the door was never truly locked, you stayed so long. Because a shared story is stronger than a lock. When everyone agrees on the size of your life, that agreement becomes its own kind of wall, and it takes more courage to walk through a wall everyone believes in than to stay behind it and be praised for knowing your place. You did not stay because you were weak. You stayed because you were surrounded by a consensus. But you are walking out now. You already started. Here is the line they can't say out loud. They did not keep you small because you were small. They kept you small because your smallness was the floor their comfort stood on, and they could feel that floor beginning to tilt. No, chosen one, you did not imagine the resistance. It was real, and it was aimed. But resistance is only ever applied to something that is moving. Nobody pushes back on a person who is standing still. The very fact that they had to keep tapping the ceiling back into place is the proof that you were already rising against it. They were not confirming your limit. They were fighting your expansion, and they were losing. Number 3. The season turned before the scoreboard moved. Results arrive late, chosen one, and the people watching only the scoreboard are always the last to understand the game has already changed. Here is a thing about seasons that nobody teaches you. The turn happens invisibly first, and shows up in the visible world second, on a delay long enough to break your faith if you do not understand it. Winter does not end on the day the snow melts. It ends weeks earlier in a shift of light and angle that no one standing in the cold can see. The snow is just the last part to get the message, and you have been standing in what looks like the same cold, watching a scoreboard that has not moved, concluding that nothing has changed, when in fact, everything that determines the outcome already changed, and the scoreboard is simply the slowest instrument on the field. Imagine this: a tide that has already turned far out at sea, while everyone is still standing on the sand near the water's edge. Nothing looks different yet. The last of the outgoing water is still sliding down the beach, and to anyone watching the shoreline, it appears the sea is still going out. But it is not. Miles away, in the deep water no one on the beach can see, the whole vast mass of it has already committed to coming back. And the people reading only the thin edge of water at their feet will keep believing the tide is going out, right up until the moment it is suddenly, undeniably, all the way in. You might wonder why life is built with this delay, why the turning and the proof cannot arrive together. Because the delay is a mercy, though it rarely feels like one. It gives you time to become the person who can hold the win before the win arrives. It lets the change set roots underground before it has to bear weight above ground. The gap between the turning and the proof is the space where you are quietly made ready to receive what is already yours. You are in that gap right now. It is not your favor being denied. It is your favor being prepared. Here is the line they can't say out loud. The people still confident about you are confident because they are reading the slowest number on the field, and they mistake its slowness for the truth. The fact that the visible world has not fully turned yet does not mean the season didn't. It means you are early enough to feel the tide coming, while the ones who wrote you off are still admiring how far out it went. The turn is not in your future, it is in your past. What is in your future is only the part where everyone else finds out. Number 4. Public is not for you, it's for them. When the underestimation gets corrected in the open, that public moment is not your prize. It is their reckoning, and the difference is everything. I want to be careful with you here, because this is where a lot of people get the whole thing wrong. You have been told that the reward for being underestimated is the public moment, the day you are proven right in front of everyone, the day the room that doubted you has to watch you succeed. And there is going to be a public moment. The message tonight is that it is coming, and coming visibly. But I do not want you to misunderstand what it is for. That public moment is not your reward. Your reward is quieter, and it already arrived. The public part is not for you at all. It is for them. Imagine this: a dam that has been quietly failing for a long time, a hairline crack widening in the dark, while everyone downstream lives as if the wall will hold forever. The failure is not a future event. It is a present condition, already underway, already certain. The public moment, the moment the water finally comes through in view of everyone, is not the moment the dam decided to break. It is only the moment the breaking became visible to the people who refused to look at the crack. The dam did not fail to impress the town. It failed because it was failing. The town's shock is about the town, not about the water. You might wonder why this distinction matters so much, why you should not simply enjoy the public vindication as a prize. Because if you make the public moment your reward, you hand your peace to the very people who doubted you. You make your arrival conditional on their witness, and that means you are still, secretly, living for their eyes. You get to walk through the vindication without needing it, which is the only way to walk through it with any dignity at all. Need it, and it owns you. Understand it, and it can't touch you. Here is the line they can't say out loud, chosen one. The day you are proven right in front of them is not the day you become enough. You were already enough in private weeks ago when the season turned and no one clapped. No, you do not have to wait for the public moment to feel whole. And no, you must not let it become the thing your peace depends on. Let it come. Let it land where it lands. But know that it is their weather, not yours. Your season already turned in a quiet room with no audience, and that is the only turning that ever actually mattered. Number 5. Why quiet is your advantage now. The ones who announce their comeback hand their doubters a schedule. The one who says nothing arrives with no warning at all. Now let us talk about the strange power of your silence in this season, because you have been treating it as a weakness, and it is your single greatest advantage. You have watched other people announce every rise. You have seen them narrate the comeback in advance, tell everyone what they are about to become, promise the reversal before it happens. And some part of you has wondered whether you are falling behind by staying quiet, by simply doing the work in the dark and letting the season turn without a press release. You are not falling behind. You are doing the one thing that actually works. Here is why. An announced rise gives the people who doubt you a schedule. It tells them exactly what to brace for and exactly when. It gives them time to prepare their defenses, adjust their story, get their explanation ready for why your success does not count. But a silent rise gives them nothing. There is no warning to react to. The season turns, the results gather underground, and the first they hear of it is when it is already standing in the room, finished, undeniable, too late to argue with. Silence is not you having nothing to say. Silence is you refusing to give the opposition a head start. Imagine this: a seed put into the ground in the cold months when nothing is expected to grow. Nobody stands over the spot announcing that a tree is coming. For a long stretch, the surface looks like plain dirt, and anyone glancing at it would swear nothing is happening there. But underneath, in the dark, in total silence, the whole architecture of the thing is being built, roots going down, the first stem gathering itself against the underside of the soil. And the loud gardens, the ones that announced everything, are not doing anything the quiet ground isn't. They are just narrating. The silent seed and the loud one are running the same clock. Only one of them warned the frost it was coming. You might wonder whether your silence will cost you the credit, whether by not announcing you will let others take what should be yours. It will not, because the kind of rise that comes from a turned season does not need to be claimed out loud. It announces itself by simply existing where a moment ago there was nothing. When the tree is standing there, no one asks who told them it was coming. The tree is its own proof. You are choosing the one form of arrival that cannot be argued with because it does not ask to be believed, it simply is. Here is the line they can't say out loud, chosen one. Your silence was never you having nothing. It was you declining to hand them a warning they could use. No, you did not fall behind the loud ones by staying quiet. You kept the one advantage they threw away, the advantage of arriving before anyone knew to stop you. Let them announce. Let them narrate their rise into every room. You will simply appear, already risen, in a season they thought they had more time to prepare for. And there is no defense against a thing that shows up finished. Number 6. The receipts you kept without trying. Every unwitnessed hour you spent becoming chosen one was quietly being written down, and the account is about to be read aloud. Do not let yourself believe that the coming vindication is luck. That is the reflex, and it is a lie you have been comfortable with for too long. When a person who was underestimated finally rises, the watching world calls it luck, a break, good timing, anything except the truth, which is that the rise was paid for in advance, in a currency nobody saw you spending. You have receipts. You have been collecting them for years without knowing it, and the season turning is nothing more than those receipts finally being counted. Imagine this, a photograph developing in a dark room, the image rising slowly out of blank paper in the chemical bath. To anyone who walked in during those quiet minutes, it would look like nothing was happening, just a blank sheet in a tray. But something was happening the entire time, invisibly, certainly. The image was gathering itself out of what had already been captured. And then it is there, all at once to the eye, though it was there in truth the whole while. Your becoming has been developing like that, in the dark, out of exposures you took years ago in private. The world is about to walk in, see a finished image, and call it sudden. It was never sudden. It was fixed long before they looked. You might wonder why, if you earned it, you were never made to feel that you were earning it in the moment. Because the deposits of becoming do not come with receipts you can hold. They feel, at the time, like effort disappearing into a void. But the person who keeps depositing into an account that shows no balance is the only one who is ever there when the account suddenly matters. If every private hour had come with applause, you would have been building for the applause. Instead, you built in silence, for no reward, and that is precisely why what you built is real. It was never for show. It was structural. Here is the line they can't say out loud. What is about to be revealed as luck was earned, drop by unwitnessed drop, in years when no one was keeping score. No one except the part of reality that keeps score whether you can see it or not. No, you did not get a break. Luck does not survive scrutiny, and what is coming will survive it, because it is not a gift, it is a withdrawal. You are about to be handed back, in one visible moment, the accumulated interest on every quiet hour you thought was thrown away. Stop calling your private years wasted. They were the deposit. This is the payout. Number 7. The moment they feel it before they see it. The ones who underestimated you will sense the ground shift beneath them before they can name it. And that unnamed dread is the first proof arriving early. There is a specific thing that happens to people who bet on the wrong estimate, and it happens before the visible reckoning. I want you to watch for it, because you may already be seeing it and mistaking it for nothing. Before they consciously know they were wrong about you, they feel it. A vague unease enters their certainty. Something in their tone toward you shifts, becomes slightly more careful, though they could not tell you why. The confidence that used to be easy develops a hairline of hesitation. They do not have the information yet, but some older, faster part of them has started to read the same underground signs you have, and it is quietly warning them that the ground is not where they left it. You have seen this, chosen one, this season. Someone who used to dismiss you without a second thought, pausing just slightly before they speak to you now. A person who was breezy and superior, developing a small new caution around you that they would deny if you named it. That is not you imagining things. That is the first proof, arriving ahead of the rest, in the only form it can take before the visible evidence lands. A feeling in them. Dread has a way of getting to people before facts do, and the dread showing up in them is the leading edge of the thing they do not yet consciously know. Imagine this: lightning far off on a dark horizon, and the long count before the thunder. The flash is the event, silent, complete, already finished the instant it happens. The thunder is only the news of it, traveling slower, taking its time to cross the distance and reach the ear. And there is a strange middle moment, after the flash and before the sound, where an animal in a field lifts its head, unsettled, feeling the charge, knowing something happened before it can possibly know what. The people who underestimated you are that animal right now. The flash already happened. Your season already turned. They cannot hear the thunder yet, but they feel the charge, and their unease is your confirmation that the flash was real. You might wonder why they get to feel it early at all, why the dread reaches them before the proof reaches everyone. Because the truth radiates outward from the moment it becomes real, and the people most invested in the old estimate are the most sensitive to its cracking. The way a person leaning their whole weight on a door feels it start to give before anyone watching does. Their over-investment in your smallness is exactly what makes them the first to feel your rising. So you will watch them get quietly, inexplicably nervous around a person they used to be so sure about, and you will know, even before the thunder, that the flash already lit the whole sky. Here is the line they can't say out loud. They are getting careful around you, and they cannot tell you why, because the reason has not reached their conscious mind yet, only their instincts, which are older and faster and already know. No, chosen one, you are not imagining the shift in how they hold themselves near you. You are watching dread arrive before data, thunder still crossing the field while the flash is already over. The proof has begun. It just started with the ones who had the most to lose. Number 8. Why you must not gloat. The reckoning does its own work, chosen one. And the moment you reach in to help it, you take the weight off them and put it back on yourself. Now a hard instruction, and it may be the most important one tonight. When the public moment comes, and it is coming, you must not gloat. Not because gloating is impolite, because gloating is a mistake of power. When you rub someone's wrong estimate in their face, you take the reckoning that was landing squarely on them and pull part of it back onto yourself. You give them, in that instant, a way to make the story about your cruelty instead of their error. A gloating winner lets the loser off the hook because now there is a villain in the room, and it isn't the one who measured wrong anymore. Imagine this. A stone dropped into a still pond, and the rings spreading outward on their own. The stone does its work by falling. You do not have to run around the edge slapping the water to make the rings go further. They are already reaching every shore. If you did slap the surface, you would not amplify the rings. You would only churn the water into chaos and hide the clean truth of the single stone that fell. The reckoning is the stone. It is already dropped, already spreading to every edge of the room. Your job is not to make waves. Your job is to be the still surface that lets the one true ripple travel undisturbed. You might wonder whether staying quiet means they get away with it, whether your restraint lets them escape the consequence they earned. It is the opposite. A person who was wrong about you and then got mocked can tell themselves you were unkind and cling to that and use it to avoid ever facing the error. But a person who was wrong about you and then watched you say nothing, do nothing, simply rise in dignified silence, that person has nothing to hold on to. There is no villain to point at. There is only their own wrong estimate, sitting in the open, with no distraction anywhere in the room. Your silence is not you letting them off. Your silence is you removing the last exit. Here is the line they can't say out loud. The quietest response is the one they cannot survive, because it leaves them alone in a room with their own mistake, and nothing to blame but themselves. No, chosen one, you do not need to say a word when the moment comes. The reckoning is not yours to deliver. It was set in motion when the season turned, and it will arrive on schedule with or without your help. And it lands hardest, cleanest, most permanently, precisely on the ones met with your calm. Keep your hands off the pond. Let the one stone do all of it. The stillness is not weakness. The stillness is the finishing move. Number 9. The ones who'll suddenly remember you. Watch for the people who wrote you off, learning to say they always believed in you, chosen one. And let them. Their rewrite is a receipt. Something specific is going to happen as the season becomes visible, and I want you ready for it, because it will test you more than the doubt ever did. The people who counted you out are going to start remembering it differently. Some of them, once your rise is undeniable, will quietly rewrite their own history and begin to say they always saw it in you. They always knew. They were always in your corner. The very ones who tapped the ceiling back into place will start telling the room and telling themselves that they were holding the ladder all along. And it will make something in you want to scream because you were there and you remember, and it did not happen that way. Let them. Here is why. That rewrite, as galling as it is one of the purest forms of proof you will ever receive. Nobody rewrites their history around a person who stayed small. You do not see people scrambling to claim they always believed in someone who never rose. The rewrite only happens over a winner. When they begin editing their memory to place themselves on your side, they are involuntarily confessing that your rise is now so total, so beyond argument, that the only move left is to have always been for it. The rewrite is not an insult to swallow. It is a verdict in disguise. It is them in the act of lying about the past, telling the truth about the present. Imagine this, a room full of people slowly, one by one, turning to face a light that has come up in the corner. At first, only a few notice it, then more, and soon everyone is oriented toward it. And if you asked any of them, they would tell you they turned early, that they were among the first to see it. None of them will say they had their back to it for as long as they did. It does not matter. Their turning is the only thing that is real, and every face in the room is now pointed at the same undeniable brightness. The light does not need them to confess they were late. It only needs them to be facing it, and they are, now, all of them. You might wonder whether you are supposed to correct them, to remind them out loud that they doubted you, to hold up the record of who said what. You are not. Correcting the rewrite is a trap because it drags you back into arguing about the past at the exact moment the present has already handed you everything. Let them keep their comfortable version. Their doubt was never the thing that could stop you, and their revised memory cannot add anything to what has already turned. When even your former doubters are working, in their own clumsy way, to build the monument, let them build it. Their bricks count too. Here is the line they can't say out loud. When they start claiming they always believed in you, they are confessing, without meaning to, that your rise is now beyond dispute, because people only ever rewrite themselves onto the side of a settled winner. No, you do not have to correct the record, and no, you do not have to make them admit what they actually said. The rewrite is the admission. It is the doubt finally surrendering in the only form doubt ever surrenders, by pretending it was never there. Let them face the light and claim they saw it first. What matters is that the light came up, and it came up in you, and now the whole room is turned toward it. Number 10. What underestimation actually built. The pressure you resented, chosen one, was quietly forging the one thing your doubters can never take and never copy. I want you to look now at what the years of being underestimated actually did to you, because you have been reading them as pure loss, and they were not. Being counted out puts a specific kind of pressure on a person, and pressure does one of two things. It either crushes what it presses on, or it forges it into something denser and stronger than the surrounding material ever became. You were not crushed. You are still here, still becoming, still rising, which means the pressure did the other thing. It forged you. And the thing it forged into you is the exact thing the people who had it easy never developed, because they were never pressed hard enough to grow it. Imagine this: 2 beams of iron, and only one was ever put in the fire. The one that stayed cool kept its shape, stayed comfortable, was never asked to endure anything. The other was heated until it glowed, and then hammered again and again, folded back on itself until it looked, in the moment, like it was only being damaged. But the fire and the hammer were not damage. They were the process. They drove the weakness out and drew the strength in. And when both beams are finally asked to hold something heavy, only one holds. The other, the comfortable one, bends. You are the beam that went through the fire. What felt like being broken was being made unbreakable, and the ones who never felt the hammer are about to be asked to carry a weight only forged iron can hold. You might wonder why it had to hurt, why you could not have become strong without the years of being doubted. Because the strength you now carry is inseparable from how it was made. Iron does not become strong by being admired. It becomes strong by being tested past what it thought it could take and discovering it did not break. The doubt was not a detour on the way to your strength. The doubt was the forge. And that is why what you have cannot be copied by the people about to be proven wrong. They can imitate your results, but they cannot manufacture the thing underneath them, because they were never willing to stand in the fire long enough to grow it. Here is the line they can't say out loud. The pressure they put on you did not diminish you. It manufactured the exact density of character they now lack and cannot fake. No, chosen one, the hard years were not stolen from you. They were invested in you at an interest rate comfort could never pay. What you resented as loss was the forge doing its work, and you walked out of it carrying something the comfortable will never own, because the only door to it is the fire, and they were never willing to go in. Stop mourning the pressure. It gave you the one thing that cannot be taken back, because it cannot even be handed over. It has to be earned in heat, and you already paid. Number 11. The reversal cannot be unhappened. Once the world has seen the true weight of you, chosen one, it cannot go back to the old low number, no matter who wants it to. Here is the mechanism that makes all of this permanent, and I want you to hold on to it, because it will keep you steady long after tonight. Perception has a ratchet in it. It can turn toward the truth about you, and then it locks, and it does not turn back easily. Once a room has genuinely seen the real weight of you, not been told about it, but seen it undeniably with their own eyes, the old low estimate loses its power there forever. You can keep a person small who has never been witnessed at full size. You cannot re-shrink one the whole room has already seen stand up to full height. The seeing cannot be unseen. This is why the coming reversal is not fragile, and why you can stop bracing for it to be taken back. You keep expecting the world to change its mind again, to return to the old story, because everything good in your life has felt provisional, revocable, on loan. But a corrected estimate does not revert. The moment the true weight of you is demonstrated in the open, it becomes the new floor, not a temporary high. People do not walk back a thing they saw with their own eyes and felt the weight of. They can doubt a claim. They cannot unwitness a demonstration. And what is coming is not a claim about you. It is a demonstration. Imagine this: a number carved into stone versus a number written in chalk. For years, the estimate of you was chalk, easy to smudge, easy to rewrite, wiped and redone by whoever held the cloth. That is why it never held still, why you could never quite correct it, why it kept getting redrawn behind your back. But what happens when the season becomes visible is different in kind. The true weight of you gets carved, not written, into the stone of things people have personally witnessed, and stone does not smudge. You can rub a carved number until your arm gives out, and it stays. The reversal, once seen, is carved. The old chalk figure is about to be replaced by something no cloth can touch. You might wonder whether someone bitter enough could still redraw the old low number. They can try, but they will be trying to sell a chalk figure to people who have seen the carving, and that is a losing trade. The old estimate can still travel in far rooms that never witnessed the demonstration, and let it. In the rooms that matter, the ones where the true weight got shown, it is finished. The ratchet has turned, not because you argued, not because you announced, but because the season quietly turned first and then, in its own time, showed itself. You did not have to force the lock. It locked on its own, on the truth, permanently. Here is the line they can't say out loud. Once they have seen the real size of you, they cannot go back to pretending you are small. Not because you won't let them, but because a witnessed thing cannot be unwitnessed, and the ratchet only turns one way. No, this is not a high you have to defend against slipping. It is a new floor you get to stand on. The old low number was always chalk. What is coming is stone, and the people who spent years smudging the chalk figure of you are about to meet a version of you that no cloth in the world can wipe away. Number 12. What you carry forward. You do not have to prove anything anymore, chosen one. And the greatest sign of your rising is that you will stop underestimating everyone else. So we come to the last one, and it is the one that changes how you walk from here. Something can be set down now that you have carried so long you forgot it was in your hands. The need to prove them wrong, the low, constant hum of having a case to make, evidence to gather, a verdict to overturn in the court of people who already stopped watching. You can put it down, not because the world became fair, but because you have learned tonight what was always true. The verdict already came in your favor, in a season that already turned, and a case that has already been won does not need to keep being argued. Imagine this. A cornerstone laid at the base of a building, down low, out of sight, with no plaque and no ceremony recorded. Nobody walking past will ever see that stone or know whose hands set it, but every wall above it stands because it holds. You have been laid on cornerstones you did not choose. Years of pressure, seasons of doubt, hours no one saw, and every part of